I'm John Cunningham, the president of Virtualware USA and the chief operating officer of the VRAR Association. And today I'm coming to you via video because I live in Orlando, Florida. And as you all know, we've got a big hurricane coming our way. And so I need to be here to prep the house and to make sure that everything's ready to deal with this storm. And so unfortunately, I can't be there. Matthew, thank you very much for the invite. I look forward to meeting with all of you sometime here in the near future. I'm very disappointed that I couldn't be there because I believe that reality capture is becoming more and more important as we look at scaling enterprise XR, building digital twins, and some of the things I'm going to talk about here today. But anyway, so enjoy this presentation. Please reach out to me. Let me know if you liked it, didn't like it, if you want to collaborate on some things. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. All right, take care. So as I said, the title of this presentation is How We Reach the Tipping Point for Enterprise XR. And I want to keep this focused around enterprise and not into consumer or gaming or things like that. So many years ago, in fact, somewhere around 2019, I remember being at a conference and talking about the adoption of XR. And I said, you'll know that we've reached a point of mass adoption when we stop talking about the technologies, the headset, the features of the headsets, and we really start talking about security, manageability, and scalability. And I think that's where we're at today. Yes, headset capabilities are still important when you're talking about headset delivered content. But remember, XR is also about large format screens, about using your phones, and as well as using normal desktop computers. But I said, I think this is really important because it's the same trends that we saw when the internet first came out, when we started using mobile computing in the enterprise, when we started deploying enterprise wireless. It was really became less about the technology and more about how do we put it to work in the business. And what is the tipping point? So I use Malcolm Gladwell's definition of the tipping point. And that's that magic moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses the threshold, tips and spreads like wildfires. And this book has been around since 2020. And if you haven't read it, I encourage you to read it. It's not that long, and it's a very interesting book. And he shares a lot of examples of things like hush puppy shoes, teen smoking, New York crime rates, examples in that book. And so I wanted to put that in the context of XR. And in that book, he talks about 3 primary laws of epidemics. And these are things that have to be in place for something to become an epidemic, not in the medical sense, but in the adoption sense. And the first one is the law of a few. And I'm not going to read all of these. You guys can read the content on the screen. And also, I'll make these slides available to anybody that wants them. But in there, he talks about mavens, connectors, salesmen. And these are all terms that we use in our day-to-day business lives. And a lot of people don't know that actually came from Malcolm Gladwell's book. The stickiness factor, right? An epidemic spreads when there's a contagious agent, whether it's naturally infectious or sticky. And that's a broadcasting term. And then the third one is the power of context. And the spread of an epidemic will depend on whether the context is right. Things like scarcity, authority, beauty, reciprocity. So these are all concepts of context, and without the right context, something won't spread to be an epidemic. So over the past year and a half or so, I've done a number of podcast interviews of folks that are involved in our industry, and some of those folks up here, this is just a small sample, by the way, where I talk to folks about, did they believe that we've reached a tipping point for XR? And once again, using Malcolm Gladwell's definition of when you reach that point where you really can't put it back, it's going to go forward and it's got its own momentum. And so what I want to do here is this is the audience participation point. And I'm going to, I like doing this in person because it kind of gives everybody an understanding of what people are thinking. So what I'd like you all to do is when I ask these questions, raise your hand, pick one of those, right? One of those 3. Raise your hand high for a second, and then look around and see what other people feel. And this is not scientific. This is all about feelings and perceptions. And it's just really interesting to see what people, what their perspective is. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to answer the question, have we reached the tipping point for mass adoption of XR for enterprise and industrial use, not for gaming, not for consumer use, watching movies, but really for enterprise and industrial use. Okay, so here we go. Ready? So those of you that think we're not even close, we're 3+ years away, raise your hand. Raise it up high. Not even close, 3+ years away. Okay, look around, see who all believes that we're not even close. Okay, drop your hands. Okay, now raise your hand for number 2. We're getting close, 1 to 2 years away. All right, raise your hands high. We're getting close, so 1 to 2 years away. Okay, drop your hands. How many of you believe that we are at the tipping point for adoption in the enterprise, right? Raise those high. You believe that, yeah, we're at that tipping point, okay? Well, drop your hands. Now let's go and see what our panelists thought. So this podcast that I did, this survey that I did, it's about a year. It's been a year and a half. So some of the technologies have really evolved in that time. None of the folks that I interviewed believe that we were 3+ years away. Most of the folks believe that we were getting close, 1 to 2 years away. And some of the folks I interviewed believe that we are at the tipping point for adoption. So it's kind of interesting, right? So I have this discussion later, throughout the conference and go back to, are you like not even close, getting close, or we're at the tipping point? We're going to ask this question again at the end about digital twins. So don't go anywhere, okay? All right, well, this is just for fun. Now, I believe that when we go back in history 10 years from now, we're talking about what was that tipping point. I believe it could be February 2nd, 2024. And why is that? And that's when Apple officially launched the Apple Vision Pro. And why do I say that? I mean, we've been using XR in military and defense and industrial for a long time. But when Apple came out with the Vision Pro, this really made it a public. It got people that are not involved in these use cases interested in this technology, because clearly when Apple does something, people pay attention. So I heard story after story of senior executives that had never really looked at XR that were talking to their teams about, hey, are we trying this on our own business? I saw this interview on CNN or on something else. So maybe that would have been, maybe the historians will recognize as the tipping point when Apple finally got into the game. But anyway, that could be an interesting discussion around dinner and drinks later. Okay, so now tipping point for the XR in enterprise. So now XR technology is really starting to move from pilot or bespoke applications to production across many enterprises. And organizations now are really looking at requiring enterprise software and hardware solutions. So when something is new and it's just being piloted, there's less concern about how do we secure it? How do we scale it? Is this enterprise quality? How do we manage it? Right? But it's still very confusing to end users and buyers. And I'll be the first to say there's a lot of smoke and mirrors from vendors in the XR industry, which makes it even more complicated and more complex. But I think that's changing significantly. Just in the last 6 months to a year, we're starting to see a lot more enterprise-ready XR solutions, enterprise platforms that have security built into them. And so I think that's a good sign that we are moving towards broader adoption. Now, what I wanted to share is an example of why I believe we are at the tipping point. I would say personally that we are at the tipping point, and that moving forward is just going to increase in depth and scale. And an example I like to use is one of our own projects with Virtualware, which is GE Vernova. And many of you are familiar with GE Vernova. They are the new power division of GE, or actually a whole separate company, where they combined everything from gas, hydro, nuclear, steam, wind, all into one company. That's GE Vernova. So let me tell you a little bit about the project. So this project came in from the GE Hitachi nuclear side, where they were looking at how can they train nuclear operators in outages where they have to move these nuclear fuel rods. And this is actually GE Vernova's slide. And that's why I wanted to share this, because when you start getting large companies like GE and Boeing and Lockheed saying publicly they're betting on virtual reality, XR technology, digital twins, then okay, this is really heading into a direction, okay? And so this is their actual slide that I took or I borrowed from them. And like everyone else, it's always about, hey, what's the benefits, And there you can see they've listed out from GE Vernova's nuclear fuel movement perspective exactly what they see the benefits being. Okay. And so they are openly scaling this. They're talking about it. They're selling it to their customers. And if you go to GE Vernova's website and you Google nuclear fuel mover, there's a whole webpage that they're advertising their nuclear fuel movement simulation and others that they're building. Okay. Now what I want to do is show you a little quick video of what it is, because I'm going to also talk about this in the context of digital twins in a second. Okay. So this is their sizzle reel that they use to show folks. And I'm hoping that it's going to come through the sound. So I'm just going to hit play and let's see. Okay. So when you look at that, that's actually a trainer, a simulator that they're using where they're using VR overlaid onto physical simulators. So it's not just purely virtual reality or mixed reality. It's actually running on top of physical simulators that they develop. And one of the reasons we're starting to see enterprise organizations adopt XR, because there's tools and capabilities that are starting to make it a lot easier to develop these solutions and a lot more cost effective. So for this solution, they have this mask, which is a physical replica. It's a physical simulator with all the logic of a fuel mover. They've got the Viru rooms, which is their virtual reality rooms, where they can put people in VR and train with other people anywhere in the world, in other training centers or from their own desktop computers. Then they've got a platform, the Viru platform, which is what's used to set up the training, the simulations, the training scenarios. It captures all the information, and then they can do post-training analysis and things like that. And then over here on the right there's an actual simulation. Now, this is really important because this is actually a simulation using the logic, using all of the data that they use in these power plants when they're doing these fuel movement outages. And this, now for those of you that haven't seen this before, this project is already 5 years into its life cycle, and now they're really starting to scale it. But it took a long time because when they started this project, none of this off-the-shelf stuff was really available. So they had to, build their solution from scratch, but now they have a platform that they can really scale it on. And one of the things that's really interesting for those of you here in the reality capture world is that they created digital twins of each specific nuclear power plant. They're not training on a generic nuclear power plant. They're actually training on the power plant with the configuration that they're going to go do the outage on. So having the digital twin of the power plant to a certain level was necessary for them to create this training solution. Now, I'm going to really quickly try to explain to you why it worked, or not how it works, and why it's been so powerful for them as a business. Well, pre-VR, everybody had to go to San Jose to train on the one nuclear simulator that they had in the United States. And these teams are 3 people, a senior reactor operator, a driver, and a spotter. And so they were limited in the number of people they could run through that plan just because it's physical. Now in the post-VR world, they created a virtual reality room next to the physical, actually at the physical plant, so that people could train in VR before they went over to the physical simulator. That way they're not using time on the physical simulator to learn basic tasks or whatever. They're getting in there and they're practicing, they're calling their commands, and they're going through the motions. Then they could just go over to the physical simulator really quick and get checked out. But what they did was they expanded that and they added other training rooms in Wilmington, North Carolina, and a mobile virtual room that's in like in a Pelican case. Well, it's maybe a little bit more than a Pelican case, but they can go into the utility operator and set up a virtual room in the utility operator's facility, bring in the simulators, and then connect those senior reactor operators who work for the utilities to train with GE Vernova staff anywhere that they have a configuration. So this now has dramatically increased the throughput. Now they added another center in Markham, Canada, and now they can, you can see all these diagrams. They can train literally just about anywhere. And something else that's really interesting with the platform, the spectators can watch anywhere on GE Vernova's corporate network, right behind a secure VPN. So for example, if you're a training manager and your team is training, you can jump in on your desktop computer and watch how that training is going and get all the data, etc. So it's given them a tremendous amount of new capabilities that they had never really thought about before. So that's kind of a diagram of how this thing is actually deployed. And as a result, GE Vernova got awarded the Brandon Hall Group Awards. They actually got a couple of awards recognizing how they're using this for human capital, human performance development. So they're very proud of that, as well as we are at Virtualware for the success of this project. All right, now let's change topic here real quick, because most of you here are somehow affiliated in the digital twin world, either from the perspective of capturing reality, scanning, bringing that data into a platform to be able to create digital twins. So I wanted to spend some time on this. You know, all of us know that digital twins are not new. They've been around for decades and decades. It's just that new technologies and tools have enabled rapid and more cost-effective creation of real-time 3D digital twins. So most digital twins in the past have been kind of two-dimensional data, charts, right? Running a digital simulation of an aircraft or a car or whatever and looking at all the data, but not really experiencing it in the real world or in a digital world as a human, but more from a data perspective. And what I wanted to share is some examples of some projects that many of you know that prior to joining Virtualware, I helped build and lead Unity's industry and government aerospace business. And digital twins in 2021, when we realized we could start using our technologies to build real-time 3D digital twins, we went after and were successful in winning quite a few digital twins. Now, I know a lot of people are going to look at this and go, well, that's not really a digital twin, right? And we'll talk about that in a moment, because there is a broad definition, a broad perspective of what digital twins are. So on the left here, we got Vancouver Airport. In the center, we have the Orlando Economic Partnership that built a digital twin for marketing uses. And then one that's pretty impressive is the Tyndall Air Force Base digital twin, where they created a digital twin to help them rebuild Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida after it was wiped out by Hurricane Michael. And one of the capabilities that they built in that digital twin is to do resiliency planning. So what happens if another storm comes through, and how will the base survive it? So they're using that digital twin for a number of different use cases, which is really important. I mean, the fact that we're facing a storm coming our way right now, I'm sure they're using their digital twin to do simulation and modeling of waves and weather impact and things like that on flight operations, for example, and base operations. Okay, so what is a digital twin, right? What is a digital twin? Is a model a digital twin? If I take some geospatial data and I put a VR headset and I fly over, is that a digital twin, right? So if you ask 10 people, you're going to get probably 8 different answers of what a digital twin is. Then the other question is XR and digital twins the same? Well, the answer is absolutely not, right? Right. Digital twins are their own thing. XR is a technology, and the two work together in some cases, right? We typically think of digital twins more in the context of data integration and operational decision making, right? Rather than just a 3D replica, because a 3D replica of something is more of a model, right? Where a digital twin is something that's operational and you can run data through it, right? Now, XR can be a really good way to represent a digital twin for human interpretation and for collaboration. I can tell you that it's highly effective to go to Tyndall Air Force Base, put on a VR headset, and then have them walk you through all of the new base development while there's flight line operations going on. You can then jump into the power system, and it gives a leader, maybe a manager, a lot more contextual awareness about what's happening than just looking at charts and graphs, right? So a lot of people say XR are the eyes of digital twins. Well, I just think they're two different technologies, but they can work very well together in some cases. Now, as with any emerging technology, right, standards, best practices, and better tools are needed to accelerate industry adoption. One of the things I was wondering, we really started hard in 2020, 21 on these digital twins, but I'm not really seeing a lot of new adoption, an organization jumping in and talking about scaling their digital twins. And I was always wondering, why is that? We've shown that we can build them. Why aren't more organizations jumping in? And I'm sure a lot of you out there have opinions. And by the way, first of all, I know many of you out there are experts in digital twins. I was really looking forward to being able to sit down and have conversations and learn from you all. Unfortunately, that can't happen, but let's try to find ways to continue this discussion on. Okay, so one of the things at Unity we found was that whenever we talked about digital twins, we with customers, it was always starting off with, okay, where do you think you're at and where do you want to go? And so our services team, our consulting team, came up with our own digital twin maturity model. And the first thing I'm going to say, this was never, ever intended to be a standard. It was never intended to be something that people would, put in as a requirement. And when they were sourcing digital twins, it was really a way to have a conversation with customers about, okay, you want to build a digital twin. Well, how far do you want to go? Where are you now? Where do you want to start? And we tried to characterize these 5 levels by what are the functionalities that each of these levels can provide, where level 1 is really just a virtual twin. It's a physically accurate, realistic digital representation of an asset, a facility, or product, right, that emulates its real-world counterpart. That's a level 1 virtual twin. And then over here on the right side, level 5, this is a fully autonomous digital twin. This is a digital twin that's running, that's using multiple real-time data feeds. It's learning using artificial intelligence and machine learning, and it's making decisions about that facility or that factory or whatever. And that's what we call an autonomous twin. And as you go through these levels, the twin gets more capabilities, but arguably it also becomes more valuable to the organization in terms of return on investment, because now that digital twin can start doing more of the things that will bring value to the organization. So it might be nice to have a virtual twin of a product, but really having a fully autonomous system that's running and making decisions and keeping the business operational probably has a lot more business impact. So anyway, once again, this was a very simple to use, digital twin maturity model. There's a lot of ones out there. Clearly, we need to get more standards, and this one would probably, go in the history books. But what was interesting to me, I don't know if you guys have all read Matthew Ball's new book, The Metaverse, Building This Book. My camera okay. This is Matthew Ball's new book. It's only 400 and some pages, right? But it's really, really well researched. Matthew just does a really good job of explaining the industry, starting with the gaming industry, moving all the way through to the enterprise and digital twins. And on page 372 of this book, he says it very clearly in one sentence. Why are we seeing more adoption of digital twins? And that is because AI has not been ready, right? AI has not been ready. When you want to get to a fully autonomous digital twin, humans can't make decisions. I mean, I'm shocked at how much data you can get from a digital twin. When we were down at Tyndall Air Force Base or in Vancouver, the amount of data that these twins are generating, most operators don't really have the ability or the responsibility to use that data to make decisions. So AI can really become a powerful tool to help sort through all of that data and make recommendations, or even get to the point where it's making decisions on its own. So Matthew contends that without AI and automated decision making, we cannot achieve level 5 using Unity's digital twin maturity model as an example. He actually lists up the 5 levels in the book and kind of talks about them a little bit, which was really cool. Okay, so now back to audience participation. So I'm going to ask the same question that we did at the beginning. Have we reached the tipping point for mass adoption of digital twins for use in the enterprise? Okay, not in gaming, but in the enterprise. So I'm going to ask the same thing. Pick one of these, raise your hand, look around and see what other people are thinking. Okay, here we go. Have we reached a tipping point? Not even close, 3+ years away for digital twins. Raise your hand, look around, see what other people think, right? Because this will feed into the panel discussion and hopefully later on too, okay? Put your hands down. All right, number 2, how many of you think we're getting close? 1 to 2 years away, okay, for use of digital twins in enterprise, right? Hands down. And how many of you think we are at the tipping point for adoption of digital twins? Raise your hand. Okay. Now, personally, I think 3. I think we're at the tipping point. I'm not saying we're there in mass adoption, but we're at that tipping point now where we're starting to see organizations really deploy lightweight functionality digital twins for use in their businesses. And then we see like level 5. If you Google Hyundai Singapore, that was a project that Unity was working on. That is probably the world's first fully autonomous level 5 digital twin. It's a Hyundai factory that's 7 stories tall, and they're using their digital twin to help reconfigure the assembly lines for just-in-time building of cars. It's really, really amazing. It's kind of where we're going to go. But that's one example. But, you know, when we look at stuff like Omniverse and NextSpace and many of these other tools that are coming out, we do have the technology and the capability and the know-how to build digital twins. And AI has matured, arguably, over the last year significantly. So for those reasons, I believe we're at the tipping point. And I believe there's a lot of opportunity, but we still have a lot of room to grow. And, you know, my comment about digital twins, when you want to build facilities, or you want to do a digital twin for a new construction build, you can't do it without geospatial, geographic data. And so the reality capture aspect of building certain types of digital twins is critical. And I was really hoping to spend more time this week meeting with many of you and learning about the technologies that you got so that we can make those recommendations to our clients who are looking to build digital twins. So please reach out to me. Here's my email. You can email me at john@thevrara.com. My Virtualware email address is a little bit longer, but I like this saying. This is Virtualware's saying, and they've been doing VR for 20 years. We're now expanding in the United States. In fact, on Monday, we announced a new strategic partnership with HTC Vive. Dan O'Brien and the team, I hope you're all on there. We're really excited about this partnership where HTC Vive has become a distributor, and HTC VARs, resellers, can actually buy Veru through the HTC organization and through the channel partners. So that's one way we're trying to accelerate adoption of XR and digital twins, you know, through these partnerships and alliances. And any of you that are interested in collaborating with us, you know, please let us know. But I love this saying, think big, start small, scale fast, right? And if you look at a lot of consultants that talk about best practices and building XR and building digital twins, that's kind of the context is really think about how this could potentially transform your organization. Start with something measurable, small, you know, with the right budgets and the right, solving the right problem. And then once you prove that out, then scale it fast. And with that, I will say thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing from you all. Take care. Have a good day.